Hello and welcome to Push Your Glasses Up. I'm Mikey. We are joined today by CaptCash once more, our cosplay buddy, to go over Moon Knight. But before we do, a little bit of that shameless self-promotion stuff. Like the videos, subscribe, podcast services, subscribe. It helps out a great deal, gets this in front of more eyes, more ears. So now, let's get to Moon Knight. Hey Cash, welcome back.
Good to be back. Is it Cash or is it? I didn't.
Casual
plan
Moon
ahead
Knight.
Yes, I didn't plan ahead to think of what I would name my other personalities. I guess Jim. Is it Cash or is it Jim? Or is it
Tango would kind of go, I would say.
That would work.
Yeah.
That was. Is it, or is it Money, who has a jaunty Irish accent sometimes? Maybe.
Nah, because then I'll be
I feel
offended.
like you say any accent I'm gonna do is gonna border on parody and probably be mildly offensive. So I'm just gonna
stick to like Pittsburgh. You got you can probably
Jin's
get that
gone
one.
downtown to fight them Egyptian gods and whatnot.
But yeah, you are here specifically, just like the other episodes you've been on, because you have cosplayed this character. I'll show a little.
Do
bit
the
on screen
costumes
here. And yeah, so it's good to have somebody enthused about the thing that we're talking about on the show. So I wanted to get you back for this one.
I don't know what you're talking about. I just no interest. Just super bored. What even is Marvel Comics?
Yeah. So what did you think about this here Moon Knight television show?
I think this was one of the best, if not the best, acted Disney Plus shows we have seen. I would put it up there with Scarlet Witch. I'm sorry, with WandaVision. But as far as story and really the ending would go, it really didn't stick the landing for me. And I enjoyed it week to week. It was a must-watch for my family and I. But that last episode, I kind of felt a little cheap. Not in the sense that
not the money they spent on it, right?
Yeah, not that it looked bad or that it technically wasn't sound. Or again, I think all of the acting was excellent, but the way the story ends felt very well, wait a minute, that's it? Okay.
But sorry, I started cutting you off. Go ahead, finish your thought there.
Yeah, but again, I thought it was an enjoyable ride. I wish it would have ended a little bit better, but it's still probably my third or fourth favorite of the Disney Plus shows.
Okay.
WandaVision, I think, is still strongest. Loki is a lot of fun, and Hawkeye also was just a good time.
Yeah.
But the acting Oscar Isaac does in this show is very, very impressive. So for that alone, it might edge out Hawkeye. I'm not sure.
Right. Yeah, I would say, like you said, it's up there with Elizabeth Olsen in WandaVision. For his not just performance, but performances. But he's clearly doing multiple characters. I think I'm a little hotter on this show than you are. It's still about the same in my ranking, but I think the weirdness of this show is what stuck with me a lot, because I liked the somewhat comical Looney Tunes aspect of the first episode, and then every episode is almost its own vibe, similar to WandaVision, but for a different reason, obviously. But I think the second and the third particularly the third episode, is probably the weakest. That's when we are now comfortable with both Mark and Steven, and we get to then just kind of go on an adventure at that point for the final three episodes. So that's almost all in the same vein, and that's where I've heard a lot of critique about the final episode that's similar to yours, but I'm thinking of them as a 3-episode block, kind of. So for me, it's just the final act of that sort of section where it started with episode 4, where it was very the Mummy influenced, and then it's sort of the kaiju culmination of that. So I actually like it, I think, a lot more than people do, because it is just like, that's the climax of sort of the half of the season.
Yeah.
I do like the overarching aspect of what they're trying to do with bringing both Mark and Steven together. I think they handled that pretty well with how they separated them in those final few episodes, to sort of display that without the other, the first isn't full. And like that penultimate episode in episode 5, like learning about how Steven was brought about, it was heartbreaking.
Yeah,
It was really well done, like, by Oscar Isaac. He was doing a good job, but that episode is what like really hit for his performances in this.
Yeah, I agree. That episode alone, I was like, wow, that went to a darker place than I thought any of these shows would go. That felt like, because I mean, we've had some sort of like, I guess, scarier or whatever you want, or more serious things that, you know, the Disney Plus shows have tackled, whether it's, you know, race relations in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or I mean, even in WandaVision, the boys, I guess, disappear, but at the same time, they were never completely real. So did they die? It's hard to say.
And she does have youth trauma that is shown in that episode or that series, but it's mostly focused on the trauma of her losing people as an adult. It is a little different than seeing the showcase be on a child going through such trauma, and like it's touched on fairly quickly in WandaVision, whereas this is a whole episode, or at least half of the episode, is basically about that childhood moment.
Yep, and what spawned or what helped to create Steven. And that was, I very much agree. I was like, wow, that's impressive. I enjoyed the last episode, and maybe I came a little harsher than I meant to.
I think you're around where most people actually kind of came out on the show, as far as what I've seen.
Because I will tell you, I love a giant monster fight. I love even more that it's giant monsters with like weapons, right? Anytime you give
a little
the giant
more Power
monster,
Rangers than Godzilla.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm totally thrilled about that. I love the Layla transformation into, I've heard they're calling her the Scarlet Scarab. I guess.
I am unaware of that aspect.
It's a very obscure old comic book character that was never female in the comics, and I think. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure if people are reaching for stuff to call her the Scarlet Scarab, but whatever. Her superhero outfit was super cool.
Yeah, and I think that it's one of those things where it's just like, it's a god taking over somebody's body, regardless of gender. It's like, that doesn't really matter, but yeah.
Yeah. But all of that, I love that we got a Mr. Knight fight.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I was really looking forward to is, I think it was, I can never remember who the artist or who the author was, the writer, but Declan Shelsley, if I'm saying that name correctly, was the artist for a bunch of the Moon Knight stuff back in it was either 12 or 14, where you got that first Mr. Knight suit.
It was 14. It was the one with the green covers.
I think so.
Right. Was it Ellis?
Yeah, and like, I think it might have been Ellis, but I always get confused whether it's Ellis or Wade, Mark Wade. And I'm sure I could look it up.
The ones with the ones that have the half art covers is the ones we're talking about. That is Ellis. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. So it was Ellis and Declan Shelsley, and I loved how kinetic the art was, and how.
Which we need to touch upon real quick. Ellis, not a great guy anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, real shame. Really just squandered his legacy by being a terrible person. But yeah, continue on.
I did not know.
Yeah,
but either way, the art was amazing, and there was an episode that was almost entirely wordless, and it's just Moon Knight tears through an entire building worth of people in that
Yeah.
Mr. Knight suit, and we got like a hint of that in the last episode, and I love that. What I did not love is the moment where Moon Knight is knocked out. He's against the ropes. What's his name? Ethan Hawke's character has like got him, and he's gonna kill him or something. And then Moon Knight kind of blacks out, and when he comes to, oh, he's won. I was like, oh, wait a minute.
I understand not being that that's a tough spot because it's the story they're trying to tell has the third personality mystery behind it. So how do you do that without not doing that kind of? So that's a tough call. I can't fault anyone for being sort of underwhelmed with the fact that they're missing a fight scene or something like that. But I also appreciate on the side of telling the story of being like, well, there is a third personality under there that is far more brutal than the two of them. And we're not showing that because we don't want to actually meet that character yet. So that is sort of an up in the air situation where it is like, I get both sides of that. I thought it was fine, but I totally understand why people would be like, why aren't they showing us anything? And but like it is one of those things that like that was through the whole season. That whole when he first wakes up in the first episode in a European village, he blacks out, and we are made to think it's Mark, but it turns out that was not Mark. That's why it's so much blood oriented with it. I
do like that where you can go back, and especially when Steven doesn't realize that Mark is a thing. It's how many of these are Mark, how many of these are Jake.
Yeah.
And I do think you're right. The key is how bloody it becomes.
Exactly. That's the differential. Like that's where you can kind of, once we know Mark's sort of line, like the whole Batman line kind of, we can tell the difference between the two. And so, I like the way that they did it because I like having that little bit of mystery behind it, but I understand why people would be like feeling like they're not being shown everything. So
yeah. I mean, and I get it, but for me, it was as much a matter of how's our hero going to get out of this?
Yeah, you want to see the resolution of the things they're setting up, of course.
Yeah, and it's don't worry about it. He's fine. All right, I'm willing to go along with this, but
there needs to be an answer at some point, and that's like clearly they're going to set up more. Like I don't think that we're gonna have to wait until like a season 2 of this show, even though it's not even technically greenlit at this point. But
as I say, you think we'll get a season 2?
I mean, we could, but I also think that we get more of this in Werewolf by Night later this year. So I think that's where we get more Jake stuff. Because I think that's where that's just going to come up. It's going to be the two of the Werewolf by Night and Jake are going to be the ones that go up against each other, and then it's going to kind of it's a movie, I think, not a series as far as I recall.
I heard it was a one shot that's going to go like an hour.
Right. So I think it's going to be like an epilogue more to this as opposed to just being like fully standalone or whatever. So, I mean, that's also assumption. As far as I know, Moon Knight is not confirmed to be in that, but it's where, I mean, they were giving people free copies of Werewolf by Night comics through this whole season. So one would assume that they would play together in that way.
The first appearance of Moon Knight was in a Werewolf by Night comic. I can't wait to see them with a straight face call the Werewolf by Night Jack Russell. Oh, that's going to be.
We are now like, we're in the realm of Marvel just being like, yeah, we're comic books, bro. Like, we can finally like kind of shed some of that. Like, this episode is coming out a little out of order, but like we just did the Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness episode, and it's like, that is it's super Sam Raimi, but it's also a super comic booky movie, and like that's why I came out like on the positive side of that, because it's just balls to the wall kind of ridiculousness for the almost entire runtime. So yeah,
We're not cool. We've never been cool. We just tricked you into thinking we were. Ha ha!
we grounded it just enough to get everybody in, and then we were like, go for it.
Come on now.
So yeah, I appreciate that they're doing that, and it's like that's part of why I love that final episode of this season as well, because it is just huge. It's just like so much absurd large stuff happening, and I mean that both literally and figuratively, but you can tell why early in the season it looked like there was some like not great compositing on the CG of like Khonshu standing behind Steven and stuff. Like it he didn't look like he was in the same scene because the budget wasn't in that episode. It was in the final
put
episode.
that money on that big kaiju fight.
Exactly. So, yeah, like that's
Put it all on giant Birdman, giant crocodile lady.
Yeah. So I think people are. It's still, for the most part, I think people aren't judging these shows on what they actually are, which is not fully a TV show and not fully a Marvel movie. It's every Marvel movie is a chapter now. Every Marvel show is a chapter now, and you kind of have to push the whole product together, like every episode, and judge it as a whole as opposed to episode by episode, because it is like a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. You're not gonna, just like any TV show, you're not gonna have a perfectly like 8.5 the whole way through. But it's also like Marvel doesn't know how to do a TV show like that at this point, because they really only know how to pace for movies. So we're getting like 50 minutes of stretched out what should be about 20 minutes sometimes, and we're getting, it's a little bit messy. And so I think you have to just like look at it as a whole as opposed to episode by episode, because I don't think you can really judge a show anymore for Marvel as episode by episode. It's a different realm now almost. It's strange.
No, I think there's a lot of sense in that, because a lot of the shows are deliberately not designed to be what we think of as shows, right? Where it's, hey, we're going to have this go as long as it can, as long as we can think of a way to tell the story, we're going to keep telling the story. A lot of these are designed a lot more like British television, where it's, hey, look, we've got one idea for this one season, and that's it. I mean, we're not getting another season of WandaVision, though I do hope we get a season of just like Vision, and they do the Tom King Vision stuff. That would be awesome.
We are getting Loki season 2.
That's fair.
That's
I think
the
Loki
only
is
confirmed season 2. Yeah.
So I think it does make a lot of sense what you're describing, where it is, hey, it's not episode to episode. This one was good. This one was bad. It's what is this whole story, which is effectively a 6-hour movie.
Yeah,
right?
it's like a season of 2-episode miniseries. So like it's, and you can look at most of them. I mean, WandaVision I think was more episodes because the first 3 were shortened, but they did release the first 2 on the same day. But the for the most part, it's 6 episodes, and it's like episodes 1 and 2 are sort of together as one episode. Episodes 3 and 4 are one episode. So it's really like a 3-episode season that's broken up into 6. So that's where I think some of the pacing issues can come through, which is totally like, that is a very perfectly fine criticism of these shows. Like, the pacing is weird in every single one of them. But I kind of don't care. It's one of those things. Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm just like, that's totally cool. For the most part, these are character studies. So I don't need an episode of these shows to be a 3-act individual episode of show. I just need it to give me a little bit more of character stuff. And then like the movies are for plot stuff. And Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness was
big action stuff. Yeah.
It was just very, very quickly paced and not a lot of plot stuff either. But like, for that, I didn't really care either, just because it's like, I think Doctor Strange 1 is a good movie. It's not my favorite, so I think he's a better side character than main character. That's besides the point. But yeah, I'm happy with how this show came out. I'm with you that it's like, it's somewhat on the lower end of what they've done so far, but that's partially only because Hawkeye and WandaVision and Loki are just
real
way
good.
up here.
Yeah.
So like Moon Knight is, if I put it up against any other TV show, very high up. But
Yep.
like just comparatively speaking to how the sort of run of these shows has begun, it's by default a little bit lower.
Is it? They came out swinging pretty hard on the first what? 2? I forget the release order.
It was WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Oh, okay.
And then
it was
Loki.
What if Loki?
What if was before Hawkeye?
Right.
And then this, yeah.
Yeah. So still very good.
And What If is my lowest, but that's a default because it's built to kind of be that, because it's so many different things that it's like we're putting in an episode that you'll be able to connect to out of these 6 or 7 episodes. Maybe you get 2 that you connect to, and that's a win for us because they're trying to hit so much of the audience with like different things.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I will say the thing that I really enjoyed about Moon Knight, more than any of the other movies, or I'm sorry, the Disney Plus shows, is it felt like its own thing.
Yeah.
I wasn't sitting here going, I wonder who the cameo is gonna be. I wonder. It just they had a story to tell. They told the story. It wasn't reliant on, oh, what does this mean for the greater Marvel? Like, we had the Infinity Saga. I need you guys to like slow down and make me like some characters.
Yep. And that's
before you start doing the big stuff again.
That is a thing that's been going on the internet with like, I keep going back to Multiverse of Madness, but like, people responding to Multiverse of Madness being like, I just feel like this phase hasn't been like going towards anything. And it's like, that's because there's so many new characters. They need to actually like give you a reason to care about them. You can't make every movie an Avengers movie, introduce new characters that you're supposed to love, that like are supposed to have a big moment in the Avengers, and have any sort of emotional resonance with it. Like you need to have them have individual problems to solve where you can watch them overcome an issue so that you can give a shit about them.
Exactly.
And it's a very bizarre place. It's to compare it to like the sports world. I live in Massachusetts. We have gotten a lot of championships in the last 20 years here for sports. If we don't win one, people lose their minds because they think we deserve it. It's like, it's this thing where it's like, people think we deserve these things in Marvel now, where it's just like, we come on, give it to me. We need it now. You're supposed to be giving this to me. But it's like, no, you have to. It's not rudderless storytelling to introduce characters and make you care about them. That is literally how you build the boat to then sail on. You need to actually like do the work in order to make us give a shit about Infinity War. If all those people got snapped out and they were just introduced in that movie, who cares? Like, no one's gonna care at that point.
But I mean, here's my thing, and I agree with all of that completely, but I feel like this is the first anything in Phase 4. I guess maybe Eternals. But that movie was not for me, and that's fine. Where it was its own thing. It was like a Phase 1 Marvel, or even later Phase 2, where it's, hey, we're going to go on an adventure with this character. That's the thing. Like, both Doctor Strange and No Way Home, and even a little bit Shang-Chi, relied pretty heavily on you having seen the other Marvel stuff and be excited to see characters from other Marvel things in the movie. And you can make the argument in this. One of the sorcerers probably should have shown up when giant gods are punching it up in Cairo. But I'm kind of glad that they didn't, because I wanted just...
Everything needs to be separated a little bit.
Yeah. Give me Moon Knight doing a Moon Knight thing.
Yeah.
Please stop throwing other people at it because you want me to care about it. Just make me like the character and then add him to other stuff later.
Yeah. And that's... I will disagree a little bit on the movies with how they're tied into the grander universe, because like I would say No Way Home, yeah, it has Doctor Strange in it for a bit, but that's more of just a celebration of Spider-Man. It just happens to be, yeah. And then with Shang-Chi, I think that's, I would put that closer to this than any of the other movies, as far as like, because there's connections, but it's not like,
yeah,
just like in this, they're not like hardcore connections. There's nods and winks, and some are more obvious.
It's not
than
really
others,
plot relevant.
Yeah, it's a little more like, hey, we're just in the same world as that. But yeah, I do think that like in general, we do need a little bit more of that separation, because it's very evidently moving towards Young Avengers with what they're setting up with, like, they set up Patriot already. They set up, or at least like introduced them, not really like set it up, not set up like Kate Bishop has been set up. Right. But we have.
If they decided they didn't want that kid to be Patriot, they could probably
recast, yeah. But we got Kate Bishop. We have Miss Marvel coming up. We have a lot of. I was counting it down the other day. There's like 6 characters that are already part of the Young Avengers that have been introduced, and it's kind of wild how many people are just like, yeah, it seems like this phase isn't moving towards anything. It's like, are you out of your mind? Like there's clear.
I agree that they are moving toward a Young Avengers, but they're
moving towards Secret War.
That's exactly right. It's Secret Wars. That's where this is all going.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole multiverse and timeline stuff. Like that's it's pretty clear that that's where that's going. But yeah, like that's 2 things that they're setting up, and people are still complaining. Like, it just seems like they're treading water, and it's like, what are you talking about, man? But yeah, there are some things I wish could have gone a little differently with Moon Knight, like the distribution of budget on some of it. But ultimately, I do think I came out a little warmer on it than most people, and I think that you're not like too far off from the sort of populace of it.
Yeah, I mean, I want a season 2. I really would love to see Oscar Isaac do more with this. I would be curious to see if they do. I saw that one of the costume designers said that they had never designed a costume for Jake. Yeah. But that if they did, they would do the black Moon Knight costume. That would be really cool to see.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm really hoping. There's definitely places you can take this from where it's at. So, I'm warm enough that, yeah, season 2 is greenlit. I'm definitely there day one. And I may or may not make another cosplay in advance of the show coming.
Plenty of suits in this to do that. But yeah, I'm in the same boat with that. I'm also, I like the sort of dark stuff that they're going with, as far as like, I don't mean like mentally dark like this is. I just mean the macabre kind of stuff that they're leaning towards, which Moon Knight is part of, with along Blade, the Werewolf by Night stuff coming up. They're starting to lean also towards that Midnight Suns stuff, and I like. If
that'd be a lot of fun.
If that can get us back to Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider, that'd be fantastic. Yeah. Like that would be a really cool thing to see them have, like these 2 branches of like Young Avengers and the Midnight Suns, and then that coalesces into Secret War stuff as like the big overarching thing. And so I'm with you on that one. I hope we get to see more of this, because it would be a shame to just let this character, with how hard Oscar Isaac went with the character, to see it kind of just go to limbo.
Yeah, I firmly believe that episode 5 should be titled "For Your Consideration."
Yeah,
because like at that point, like, that was the episode where I finally went, wow, these are completely 2 separate characters. This is like I stopped seeing 2 Oscar Isaacs and just started saying, oh, that one's Steven, that one's Mark. All right, Cool.
It was a birth. You watched a birth of a character come into play there, and that's something that these shows and ultimately like the Marvel movies you sometimes get in origin stories, and sometimes you don't even really get that. Like, so it's, you see like Tony Stark already exists. He just, becomes a slightly better person. Not necessarily a fully good person, but a slightly better person.
Still the greatest villain in the MCU.
Right, yeah.
Causes most of the problems.
But this is the first time you see like the creation of the person and not just the superhero. Yeah. So that is a really cool thing that they were able to cover and handle it as far as somebody who doesn't deal with the issues that this character deals with. So seemingly in a way that was respectful, because it's, as far as I've seen, I haven't seen a ton of advocates saying that it was not done in good taste. So that's like, that's the biggest win that it can really come with. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it would be really easy to make the DID thing a gimmick or to just dismiss it as crazy. And certainly there is, hey, this man is not mentally well there, but it's never done in a way that feels like a sideshow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
they're not making fun of it, and they're not turning him into a villain necessarily because of it. So it's, yeah.
Even though
there is a villainous possibility, but it's not, I wouldn't, I also wouldn't say Jake is a villain either. I would say it's just another competing personality. I mean, I'm saying personality not in the literal sense. I'm saying it as far as like in the show. It's a competing protagonist. So it's one of those things of just seeing who is going to weigh down the entity of Moon Knight and who is going to let it flourish. And that's, yeah.
I genuinely think that last shot of that last episode, the mid-credits singer, it was mid-credits, right?
Yeah.
I think that throws the whole Moon Knight character in a very different light, where this is a superpowered murderer, because you see one of the hospital orderlies in a pool of blood. Jake has definitely killed an innocent person to get to Ethan Hawke's character. So
there's no denying that aspect, but I do think that they made it clear that Khonshu was always there. He was always following Mark even before the accident with his brother. That is the point of why they had that bird skeleton on the ground there. So I think that there is a responsibility that is also larger than just the personalities themselves. So it is. I think it leads to a far more interesting story that can be told, because they're going to have to figure out a way to actually discuss that. And that's where like the possibilities of what's to come is exciting, because it's just, they actually did a purposeful setup to plot, and not just like, oh cool, a cameo. Like that's where it's those are fun, but this is like, it has more meaning to it. So yeah,
agreed. Do you think they'll have the Jake Lockley Moon Knight speak only in Spanish as well?
I don't know. I think that was just a flair for Oscar Isaac putting a stamp on Moon Knight himself. So I think that's just, maybe it'll be accented. I don't think they would go full subtitles on it for the most part. Enough. Just like in Multiverse of Madness, they had a little bit of like, there was a little bit of Spanish, there was a little bit of English for America Chavez. So
as long as we were talking Khonshu, I also want to give it up to F. Murray Abraham. Mwah.
Marvel's heartthrob.
Listen, F. Murray Abraham is a handsome man, even if he killed Mozart.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's just stuff you're gonna have to forgive.
It's interesting to see the late years career that he's made for himself. He's on Mythic Quest as well. Like,
Oh
very
yes,
strange.
I watched a couple episodes of that.
I haven't seen it at all, but I saw just the trailer and I was like, this sounds like F. Murray Abraham. And then he's just on screen. I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
definitely him. There he is.
yeah, yeah. They're still it's the way that Marvel brings in old, like particularly like the old men actors, reminds me of the early years of The Simpsons, where it's like just a bunch of the old like gravelly voiced character actors that were never huge stars, but they just bring, like the episode where Bart is banned from the department store, and like it's just some old Hollywood like 1950s actor who just like talks like this ridiculous gravel voice.
Yeah.
Just because all of those original writers just loved those old actors because they were like they were character actors, but they were just always themselves. So I feel like that's kind of what they're doing with this nowadays too.
I'm the character actor that plays one character, but I do it really, really well.
Yeah, well, that's the Brian Dennehy, Patton Oswalt story of like
The Rock.
Well, not
love
even
you,
that.
Dwayne.
Not even that. Like he's leading man one character, whereas like the story with it's one of Patton Oswalt's bits where he was at some event. It was in like a Golden Globes type of thing where it's like they're eating dinner. And Patton Oswalt was like, and I was just like stuffing my face, blah, blah, blah. And Brian Dennehy comes over to me. And he just goes, character actors, huh? Yeah, we can do that. Like it's just like nobody cares about the diet of the character actors. It's only about the leaders. So yeah. But yeah, hopefully we get some more of that like weird pseudo stunt casting with like more of those like sort of deep cut characters that are just like, let it be weird, let it get as weird as possible, because I would much prefer, especially with like this type of character where like the sort of spookiness comes through, like you want weird. Otherwise you just have a serial killer and it's the Riddler in the Batman, which is fine, but like I don't want that for the supernatural weird stuff. Get as weird as possible, cast actors who are just gonna go in directions you would never expect for a Marvel movie.
Nick Cage, that clock is running out, buddy. Not gonna be Ghost Rider, but we'll let you do something fun.
Hey, we got multiple universes. It's fine. we can. Who's to say that the gates of hell can't pull in different Ghost Riders? It's fine.
Across the Ghost Rider verse. That doesn't sound as good.
Well, no, it would be like, instead of like Into the Spider-Verse, it would be like Into the Rider-verse.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Damn it, that's good.
Yeah, that is my, I'm going out on a high note. I'm calling the episode there. So that is,
Take your bow. No, that's good.
Yeah.
Into the Rider-verse.
There's the clip for TikTok. But yeah, we'll call the episode there. You'll be back, I'm sure, when we get to the next character you cosplay.
I have already got my Thor Love and Thunder red leather vest.
That episode is claimed. I might be able to get both of you guys on. That might work.
You got to do what you got to do. Yeah. I understand.
If I can work out a schedule where all three of us can come together in agreement on when it can happen, then I'll work that out.
I'll brush out my wig.
Perfect. And yeah, so I got held up on that image in my head. So let people know, I put it on screen earlier when I pulled up your cosplays of Moon Knight, or Mr. Knight specifically. And I have a link in the description down below, but let people know where they can find you.
You can find me at CaptCash on most of your social media.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks for coming on again.
Thanks for having me, Mikey.
Of course, a good time. And until next time, bye.